It was called National SB Chrome. I just call it Cringe Yellow. I think that's probably a more accurate term for it, but it wasn't always the color that we know it as today. The original pigment was monoclinic lead chromate, otherwise called chrome yellow. And they chose it because it had this superior steel protecting property compared to other pigments. But they had to change it because the lead chromate's toxicity, which was a result of both its lead and chromate content, and because of lead sulfide darkening after exposure to air, which was really important because these things were left out in the air all the time and really had to withstand some heavy city pollution as well as country dirt roads getting all over it. They had to change it eventually because with the mixture of cadmium sulfide, otherwise known as cadmium yellow, and cadmium orange or selenium pigments to produce the equivalent color that we all now know today as what I just called cringe yellow. And cringe is what you do when you are sitting there in traffic, usually around 3 o'clock in the afternoon at like an intersection, and you just see this color go by you and you just cringe at this yellow color that is now technically referred to as National School Bus Glossy Yellow. Yeah, that's official. I'm looking at it here on the official Wikipedia page. Yeah, the modern school bus as we know it today has its roots in April of 1939 in New York City, which I believe this is the same year as the New York World's Fair, right? But I do not believe that the school bus was on exhibit at the World's Fair. No, they were just coming up with it, coming up with the idea. And there was this education professor at the Teachers College of Columbia University, this guy named Frank Cyr, C-Y-R. And his idea was to organize a conference of other educators and to establish uniform national design, construction, and safety standards for school buses in America. So standards such as the exterior body, what we know today, that very specific yellow submarine kind of look to it, right? And so, yeah, Frank W. Cyr became known then and is known today as the father of the yellow school bus. So I don't know. I suppose that's not like that bad of a thing to hang your reputation on, I guess, right? Yeah, because the school bus is a wonderful thing. We have to give it its due. We think in this country we all get a free public education that we're entitled to. And that's great, but how do we get there? In order to get there, we have to have a special bus. And so, yeah, Frank Sir, CYR, it's like Cyrano, but without the a-no-s, right? Said, like, we have to make sure that people in the country, in the cities, remember this is like at the tail end of the Great Depression, so public transportation is still more ubiquitous than the personal automobile. So the roads are full of these things, and they had to find a way to distinguish these buses from all the other conveyances for the public. And so they had to make sure that it looked very specific. It had to basically, in the years before that bumper sticker, let people know that there were babies on board, right? That what the cargo was, that this was the future minds and the hands of America. And so people had to know that. And yeah, the school bus was a wonderful thing. It got poor people to school, especially here in the South, where everything is very disparate, the population and whatnot. And it's a place where, like, the cliche was very much true. I had to walk, 10 miles to school in my bare feet. The schoolhouses were like single wide, one room affairs with a dirt floor. And so they had to get there, right? And so over the years, yeah, it served a wonderful thing, especially during integration, where sometimes the schools that were to be integrated were miles and miles from the homes of poor African-American children. So the school bus got them there. And it helped to more or less single-handedly spin out doctors and lawyers and laborers. So yeah, the school bus was a wonderful thing. And like, we all know this now, and I know this today, speaking to you tonight. Speaking of a wonderful thing, by the way, this is the Midnight Citizen Show. I'm your host, Mike Booty. Thanks for joining me tonight. And yeah, I know now that this was a great thing, but when you're 10 years old, you really don't care. You just hate it so much. Just riding on this thing every single day. No seat belts, no suspension, no helmet. And you smell everything. Right? The bad breath from the kids who ate lunch. There at the end of the day, the kids who had been out on the field doing what they do, playing field hockey. Getting on there, you just smell it all from the minute you get on there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to maybe like an hour and a half later when you step off of it. That may honestly explain one of the reasons why I don't have kids today. Is because I don't want my house to smell like a county school bus. Yeah, and an hour and a half was what it was when I entered the 4th grade. I had moved to a new town, and my sister and I, my little sister and I, we were in a new school, and we had never in our old house, in our old school, we had never had to ride the school bus because we lived a mile away, and my mom taught at the middle school that butted up against it, so she was always our ride. But now in the new house, Dad worked downtown and Mom worked in a school that was 45 minutes away, so we had to take the school bus. And so I had never... Oh, what? I'm not saying that I was like Mr. Burns on The Simpsons, like getting all of his money stripped away from him and having to, be poor and ride the bus, and he's kind of all smug and he's like, I'm riding the bus. I'm not saying I was like that, but I was definitely probably, got on that thing and was confused when I was walking up and down the aisle and probably asked a kid, excuse me, sir, may I ask, where are the seats with the seat belts? Probably surprising, right? And what's even worse is that knowing that this was just an awful monstrosity to be on, I was at least a little relieved in the fact that, like my old house, I still only lived a mile away from school. And so I said, like, as rancid as this conveyance is, at least I only have to be on it for like a mile. This is no sweat. I can sit down and maybe put my little cloth napkin down on the torn, dirty vinyl seat with the gum stuck to it from 1973. Just get on it. And my little sister there is like there next to me, and we're in the bus, and we're going over that hill and this intersection and that intersection. Finally, I see it on the horizon as like the mouth of our new neighborhood, and we're getting closer to it, and I realize very quickly that this thing is not stopping. And she just goes right by it, this lady, at the very front of the bus who's driving the thing. And I start to get up and kind of make my way down the corridors. We're going up this hill, and it's like going really fast, and it's almost like trying to go from the limb to the service module in like a spaceship, just fighting against gravity to get there. And I just see like her eyes look at me through that rear view mirror, just looking back at me, and just said like, no moving while the bus is in motion. And this was the first time that entire first day of school I had been reamed for anything. I had made it through my entire first day without stepping out of line, without intruding in anybody's territory, and here I am on the bus, and getting yelled at by this woman who I've only seen her eyes. So I wait finally until the next stop, and I, go up to the front of the bus with some kids who are getting off at that stop, and she puts her hand down in front of me so that I don't get off. And I said like, oh no, ma'am, I'm not, this isn't my stop. And she says, I know it's not your stop. That's why I put my hand down so you can't get off. And I said, well, might I inquire why you didn't stop? That was mine and my sister's stop back there. And she says like, I know it's your stop. You'll have your turn. And I said, well, when is my turn? Like, can you turn this thing around? I mean, what's going on? And she said, we cannot allow that. We can't allow that. You have to wait until you're on the other side. And so I realized then what's going on. My first day of fourth grade, when I've got all these other days ahead of me, and then the years after that, when I have to ride the same bus on the same route home from school, is the fact that as a child of the late 80s and early 90s, I'm screwed. Because all these idiots came before me and decided to run off of the school bus across a lane of traffic and get hit. And so now all these policies and all these laws have been changed. And now, because of all them, I have to now wait an extra hour and a half for the route to come around again so that the bus can stop and I don't have to cross like an additional lane of traffic in front of cars. Oh! Sitting down there now, and it's like, this is what it is. And yeah, like an hour and a half I have to sit there every single day. It's awful. And sometimes twice in one day. I'm not counting like the one to school and back to school, but like if you had a field trip or something like that. And that was particularly awful, because what happened is that generally when your school had a field trip, when your class had a field trip, you would usually have to, bunch onto a school bus with the class that was like your first hour or whatever. And the first hour I had been identified as having a learning disability. So I had to go for the first hour of school every day to a special class to get extra help in math and reading. And in this class was anybody else in the school who had also been identified with some kind of a disability, not just a learning disability, but also a physical difference as well. So the kids with in wheelchairs and all that. And so every time we had a field trip and we got to go, I would have to board with them onto the short bus. So yes, you know the short bus, right? Yeah, the short bus, which was the much more truncated version of the long bus, which was awful, but at least there wasn't a social stigma attached to it. Maybe not until later on when you got into high school and you were still riding it while your friends were driving. And so, yeah, I had to get on the short bus every day for a field trip. So now suddenly, that was fun. And yeah, that was perhaps like the worst thing about the school bus, was that it was just an extension of school, right? You're just on there every day and you just like, you just want to be out of it. It's like just 8 hours, get me out. I'm ready to be home in front of the television. I'm tired of performing for people and looking and acting normal. And I just want to be in my world. I want to be in my own world. I want to be in my room, right? So, but no, you had like an extra hour and a half where you had to sit on this thing and just like further endure this inequitable caste system of the school bus. Yeah, and you know, there was a tier system, just like anything else in school, but it was a little bit different on the school bus because it was just narrow. It was up and down, and there was really only one way for the hierarchy to present itself. And of course, you know this, I'm sure, is that the cool people, the people who had, I never understood how they earned the right. They wore nicer clothes. I'll definitely say that. Maybe that had something to do with it, but they got to sit at the back of the bus. And in a lot of ways, it was sort of like Escape from Alcatraz. Whatever, you know, like where the lifers, the really hardcore, hard-term prisoners sit up on the top step so they get to see the Bay of San Francisco over the fence. And yeah, that was very much what it was like. Just the back of the bus there. That's where all the cool kids sat. And it is one of those things that I'm sure probably made it very hard for like our history teachers to teach us about the civil rights movement. You know, like the Montgomery bus boycotts, talking about Rosa Parks and sitting in the back of the bus and refusing to do that. And I'm sure there were one or two like wiseacres in the class that would always be like, but the back of the bus, that's where all the cool people sit. Right? So yeah, it was just an extension of school. You would have to get on there, and really what I would do, and this was for, I suppose, what was that, 7 or 8 years that I had to ride the school bus. Just continue to do what you had done all day long, which is just to be anonymous, just to not draw attention to yourself, just to slip on. The first couple of days were the worst, but once you found that seat where you could just slip into it, you could pull your hoodie over your head and you could read like your book, you were golden. It was fine. And that's what I did for 7 long years. I rode that bus home from school for like an hour and a half. The time never changed. Elementary school, middle school, high school, was always an hour and a half. So until I got like a car in spring of my junior year of high school, it was always the same thing. So, yeah, it was just be anonymous. And I was really trying to think of it today when I was planning this episode. It's like, did anything ever happen? Did I ever get plucked out of obscurity for any reason? And the only time I can really think about was maybe one time in the 8th grade, I think. Yeah, what happened in the 8th grade was, as I said, my little sister and I went to the same school. She was a year behind me. And in the 8th grade there, you know, it was all the kids at the back of the bus. They were my contemporaries. And they had earned their right, they felt, to sit back there. And they were very comfortable back there, and nobody else would come back there and upset their universe. Until one day, when I was sitting there reading a book, maybe listening to music, and I just felt this tap on my shoulder, and there was this guy there that I knew who never talked to me. Tommy Hilfiger, let's call him. And Tommy says to me, you know your sister? I was like, yeah, Melinda, what's up? And he says, she won't move. And I said, like, won't move from where? Her seat? Like, no, it's not her seat. So he tells me to stand up. He brings me to the back of the bus. I follow him back there. And there's Melinda. She's sitting in the very back, right? Which she could do, and usually did do, toward the end of the bus route when the bus had filtered out. And there were only the kids, us, and like the kids for the very last stop of the bus route. So she was back there, like about an hour or so before she was able to sit back there, before nobody would protest or complain. And Melinda was just sitting there. And they said, like, you're in the 7th grade. You haven't earned the right to sit back here. Maybe next year. Right. And so they turned to me and they just said, you got to talk to her. And to this day, I have no idea what I said, but I'm sure it was not very effective. And I don't know what happened with Melinda. If she got up and she came to the front of the bus and she was put in her place. I don't know. I have no idea why she suddenly decided to do that. Maybe she that day had also learned about Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. Maybe she just took a different lesson from it than they did. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. So I'm sorry. It's a bit of a disappointing story. All I know is that I'm pretty sure that whatever Melinda did, it was her own decision to do it, because even today, she has that kind of stubborn solemnity in her, and she had it back then as well. So whatever she did back that day, I'm sure absolutely 100% it was her decision to do it, not mine, not theirs. What's that time you realize something that you inherently feel is that you've always known is true? Does that make sense? I don't know if I said that right. You know, like that day that you realize what state that you live in. Like, you feel like you've always known that, but at some point you had to learn it. Like, I had to have learned that I live in Alabama, right? At some point. Or like that day that you just find out like what the value of money is, right? Like how much 25 cents is compared to something that's 50 cents. You know, these are things that you just feel you have always known, but you had to have learned them at some point, right? You know, to this day, I really wonder, like, when was the first time I ever learned that somebody who is older than me could lie, or maybe could not be as knowledgeable as they claim to be. And I think I learned that on that day in the 5th grade, when a 6th grade kid came from the middle school to talk to the 5th grade class, the seniors they called them, of my elementary school, to tell them what middle school was going to be like, right? And so they came in. So these were kids that I had known somewhat. They were a year ahead of me, and so they had left and they had gone to the middle school. And here it was the springtime, and I was about to go and join them the next semester in the school. And they were invited to come over and speak to the class. And of course, their speech and their rhetoric was very battle hardened, like real scarred. Like, man, let me tell you guys, you cannot in the 6th grade, you cannot not do your homework. I'm telling you, man, they're serious about this over here. They're going to fail you. They're not going to give you any extra chances. I'm telling you, man, if you're late for class, that teacher, man, they're just going to lock you out. They're going to lock you out, and you're just going to have to go to the principal's office. I'm telling you, man, you can't mess around over there in the middle school. It's no joke over there in the 6th grade. We believed all of it. We're sitting there, like it's some kind of a Scared Straight program or whatever, listening to these kids. And at some point, one of them asked, about the buses. Like, what are the buses like over there in the 6th grade? And they looked at us, and they said, oh, man, okay, that's one thing. All right, your life is about to improve. You better get ready for this, man, because the buses, I'll tell you, it's like the buses, like you got TV on there. You can watch TV while you're going home from school. They got a bathroom there in the back. You can go in the can. Tell you what, it's quite luxurious. It's really not that bad at all. It's nice. You're gonna love for school to get out, not for the normal reasons, right? So we're all sitting there and everything, and I raise my hand. I'm like, well, what about seatbelts? Oh man, they have seatbelts. Are you kidding me? Yeah, you'll be snug, man. They made it sound like there was some kind of like a stewardess that was going to come down the aisle, right, and give me a Pepsi and like a pillow or hot towel or something like that. So they were really telling me that, right? So yeah, everything's going to be different there, right? In junior high, on the school bus, And yeah, the next year, that was probably like, that August when school started back up again, and I was just there. I was riding the same old bus, just with a different number. That's probably when I realized that somebody much, who was older than me, or maybe in some kind of a leadership position, I suppose, let's just say that, could lie, could inflate the facts. And in that case, I think just a complete prank. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's like it's all the same, right? I believed him. Sixth grade lie. Had to let my dog out there. She wanted off at this conveyance called the Midnight Citizen Show. Right. And on a Saturday night, I was supposed to record. I usually record on Friday nights here in the studio, but last night I was fully planning to do it, but had everything kind of prepared and planned, but as so happens, I got home and had a laundry emergency. In other words, like our washing machine is, I'm pretty sure our washing machine was made the same year that my school bus was made, which was like in 1982. The school buses, they all have those numbers on the side of them on that, like, very specific trademarked school bus color, that the prefix is always the year that the bus was made. I don't know what the suffix is. Maybe I guess that's the serial number or something. But yeah, I do remember very clearly my school bus from elementary school was called 8214, so 1982. So that thing was probably made the same year as me, as well as my washing machine. I was getting home the other night and just last night, and yeah, like I needed to do all this laundry because I had like tutoring today. I had to like actually be in front of people, and I've been working all day. I hadn't had any time to do laundry, and so I came home fully prepared to throw a load in and then come in and like do the show. But as so happens, the laundry machine was broken. It wasn't draining, so I had to deal with that. I ended up going over to Dave's house, and Dave was so kind to allow me to use his machine and feed me beer and good times. So it was nice of him. So it was still a good night, but here I am here on a Saturday night doing the Midnight Citizen show. But I guess that's the way it's supposed to be, right? I always release them on Saturday. So thank you. Thanks for joining me here tonight on the show. Yeah. I'm not calling, I'm really not trying to relate this whole, topic to what's going on in the world, but I think like little small things can really definitely explain much bigger events and occurrences, right? The macro is explained by the micro, I think, very easily. And that's why, like, when I look at this guy, JD Vance, the Vice President of the United States, who I first came to know this guy because he wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy that got turned into this movie, and it's all about his childhood, like growing up. Where did he grow up? Like Kentucky? I don't know, some small town place. And what's interesting about it to me is that as the vice president is now like a world leader, JD Vance is the first person to ever hold that position in my lifetime who's actually younger than I am. So, right, I'm 42 years old, so this guy JD Vance is 38 or 39 years old, something like that. So it's fascinating because, like, just growing up, you always have this idea that your leaders are older than you, and therefore they're coming from experience, they have decorum, and they have a plan because they're old. And so now, as I've just established, right, from the battle-hardened sixth graders coming to talk to my fifth grade class there about what it was going to be like. Older people don't have a plan. People in power, leaders, like, don't have a plan. And I know that this guy, JD Vance, doesn't have a plan and really doesn't know much of anything. How do I know? Because he went to an American public education system at the same time I did. He is my contemporary. As a matter of fact, yeah, he's a few years younger than me. So, like, I would have been in the back of the school bus telling him to get lost. Right. And yeah, I know now from experience, this is the first time I can ever say this, that like an actual leader that we look to had the same exact kind of education as I did in civics, and he was not it was not very efficient, right? I know this from going through the same thing as he did, right? I don't know, man. It's just, I wonder, my big question today is I really do wonder if he understands that he was being set up by Trump and whoever runs his administration, Musk, I suppose, to take the fall if that whole press conference with Vladimir Zelensky went bad. I really do wonder if he understands really what the role of the vice president is, because going through the same, 12th grade government class as he did, it was never represented to me that the role of a vice president is to really take the blame, take the fall. They don't tell you that in high school because they want you to be patriotic and they want you to think that every government office, really means something. But what it does appear like is that there are essentially two roles, right, that a vice president can fill. There's two tracks they can go down, right? There's the I'm grooming you to be my successor route, okay? And this is what people like, Ronald Reagan did with George H.W. Bush. This is what people like Bill Clinton did with Al Gore. Like, hey, this guy looks like he's not ready yet, but, right, he's got a state that I need to be represented in my electorate. And he also looks like he could probably take over for me. I would be comfortable with this guy assuming my position in the event of a problem, or just me lasting 8 years and needing somebody to take over for me. So that's one track. The other track is like, oh my gosh, I'm a really terrible president. I need somebody to sit next to me and just nod his head so that it can look like he approves of what I'm doing. And therefore, if I get into hot water, I can just say, like, look at that guy. Okay. And I think that, this is what, very clearly, this is what Mike Pence was there to do with Trump the first time. It didn't work out for him that well because he agreed with Trump, up until the minute when Trump basically told his MAGA crowd to hang him. I think it's not working at all with JD Vance. JD Vance is very obviously like he's a patsy. He's being put there as meat in the room to be sliced off and fed to the wolves, right? Of his people. And yeah, I think that's definitely what happened yesterday during this horrible press conference when, Trump and Vance just came across as like, angry youth counselors reaming one of their students, reaming one of their campers, for doing dirty. I don't know. That's honestly really not what I'm worried about so much. It's terrible, but can we just, I don't know. What I am concerned about, I am concerned a little bit about the Department of Education. And, the fact, these people who, 90 years ago were like, let's keep kids safe. Let's actually keep the, future of this country protected by putting them on distinctive school buses, right? That are this very unique shade of yellow and orange, right? Like, because orange means universally caution, right? And yellow means universally pissed, right? It's not a fun color, but it's at least something that people will recognize, right? Like the trademark color for Coca-Cola or UPS or something like that. Okay. So we go in 90 years from like just this actively trying to protect kids to, this week actively attempting to completely corrupt and pervert their futures by putting the Vince McMahon's wife in charge of their education and accepting the job in the way that nobody ever would accept a job, which is to accept a job under the terms of like making her job extinct. Like that's really what the president told her to do, is like, I want you to make your job extinct, right? Which is, somebody would take that job if they were very well protected and had a lot of money and really didn't need the job in the first place. Like, okay, you mean I just get to go in and break stuff? It's like one of those rooms that they have, like an escape room or whatever, but instead of escaping from things, instead of throwing like hatchets at the wall while I drink beer, I can just go in and rage. I can just go in and pick up stuff and throw it around. That's what you want me to do in this building called the Department of Education. God dang, man. Yeah, that's a little, a little concerning, right? That, yeah, you know, again, we knew, again, something we knew what was going to happen, right? Just people who are not only rich, but just love to tell, you know, Donald Trump whatever he wants to hear is just, you know, advancing through the department, through the cabinet. And this latest thing is Linda McMahon, the full Senate advanced McMahon's nomination to be the Secretary of Education in a 51-47 vote. And this does not bode well at all for the Department of Education. All the guarantees that it will be shut down, right? Probably within the next couple of months. I don't know. And right, as I've said before, like the biggest concern about the Department of Education shutting down at the federal level, and of course, yes, it is very bloated, just like any other kind of government organization. It is very bloated, and I'm sure that there is some corruption in it, but nothing is ever 100% efficient. You can't just, right, throw millions of babies out with the bathwater. You just can't do that. But what they're doing is they are, by shutting down the Department of Education at the federal level and just handing the money over to the states are now in charge of deciding who gets the money. And, you know, if you're in a state that cares about education, then that may not be such a bad thing. But if you are in a state that thinks of education the way that I think Donald Trump thinks of education, which is to put someone in charge of it the way that you're like a little league baseball coach and you put the lowest performing team member in the most insignificant role. Like, he thinks of the Department of Education as being like backup right field, I think. You know, it could mean a lot of problems. The state of Alabama specifically loves taking money allocated for things like COVID relief and education and, you know, giving it to things like subsidies for-profit prisons and, you know, justifying that, of course, by thinking that, like, you know, well, the kids who really want an education are going to get an education, and the kids who don't want an education are just going to, like, end up on the streets, you know, doing crime. And, in that case, it's a win-win, right? Because we have a place to put them. Yeah, this is happy music, right? Yeah, let's see. So, what I am clearly concerned about right now is not necessarily that you know, somebody who's only previously worked with in the most, you know, corrupt business imaginable, which is that of professional wrestling. Like, if you put that toe to toe with the with education, then I don't know. No, what I'm really concerned about is that this is obviously taking the spotlight off of the real questions that need to be asked and answered about what problems we have with education. And no, it is not liberal arts programs. It's not teachers going in and indoctrinating their students to, you know, chant against Israel and hate Donald Trump. It's not that at all. I think that there's no doubt a good chunk of education that does allow for that kind of discourse and does allow for these bad actors to go into classrooms and indeed educate their children to take extremist stances or to believe one way or the other and to not do what they're supposed to do, which is to foster critical thinking, which is to foster the asking of questions and to just simply learn to be the leaders, the minds and the hands of tomorrow, right? I have no doubt that does exist. And just like anything needs to be addressed, but what really needs to be addressed first is the fact that the vast majority of students in this country simply do not understand how to learn, how to be educated. They just don't get it. Education has gone into this plateau right now where it is just simply something that kids do. It's perfunctory. It's daycare. And then when they get out of secondary school and they end up going to college, they just end up doing the same exact things. Only in, college, it leads to much more terrible consequences, like consequences that could indeed haunt them their entire lives. So these are the questions that we need to be asking right now and answering is like, how do we get kids in the position to where they can be educated again and actually feel free and engaged to be interested and curious about the world? I don't know. I don't know if we do it by presenting to them nothing but, people who are older than them and leaders who just are just grown up versions of lying about how tough the 6th grade is. I don't know. Yeah. And as you may know, like I do teach college students, and I have been dealing right now with a lot of apathy. A lot of apathy, among my students, among these freshmen, these 18 and 19-year-old students who I teach. Just getting them to participate and to be active, and also to actually take a very active role in their education, to actually not be told what to do, but to just intuitively understand what they need to do, because they're there to learn shit and to actually think for themselves. And I'm having a difficult time right now getting them to do anything that I just don't ask them to do, to getting them to go like above and beyond assignments. And in many cases, to even just get them to look at the assignments to know exactly what they need to go above. And it's been difficult. And I don't know if it's me. I genuinely don't. But I do have this like thing that, like, after 8 years of teaching students now, various forms of English and literature and writing and composition and all that, I do have this feeling that when you throw out a task for your students to do, and the vast majority of them do not do it, it's generally a failure of your leadership, a failure of something that you messed up on. I don't know if like our leaders think the same thing, have this level of metacognition and self-reflection. I don't know. I do find it funny that this past Monday night, I was doing the same thing that Elon Musk was doing. I was sitting here at my computer. I was waiting for projects for assignments to be submitted back to me. But there was a midnight deadline, just like Elon Musk had. Elon Musk had a midnight deadline, right, with his with all his people, with the federal workers. He asked them to tell them 5 things that they had done last week, right? I don't know if the same email went out to Donald Trump. I guess Donald Trump could answer it. He could sort of say, like, I shut down this, I shut down that, I fired these people, right? Like his to-do list read like a summary episode from like a Netflix show or whatever. But it is funny that like Musk, like me, ended up not getting a lot of the submissions back in. A lot of the things were not submitted, right? A lot of people did not tell him 5 things that they did last week. They were for various reasons, right? It was either like an act of protest, or their department heads told them not to do it, told them like, do not report to anybody outside of this agency. It is against protocol. It's a breach of security in many cases. And so, but yeah, I don't know if like Elon Musk thought the same way I did when I started. Just like midnight came and went, and I started getting no submissions. I got like a few, but like mostly it was like that assignment sheet column was blank. And so I was sort of wondering, what did I do wrong? I really agonized over it. Like when you had that many students not turn something in, you've done something wrong. You haven't communicated something effectively. So I really anguished over it. I don't know if Elon Musk did at all. Like maybe he did for a second. Like maybe I did something wrong. Like, like in the way that you sort of think like on your way home that you got to stop by the store and get like a gallon of milk or something. Like it's just kind of this passing thought. No, it's okay. I'll wait for the morning. Right. No, I didn't do anything wrong at all. Like it's their fault. Right. So, but yeah, what does make me think though, that Elon Musk and Donald Trump did have like this idea that like maybe we were just a little bit, maybe we gave them unrealistic expectations. Or maybe we like an unrealistic assignment that they needed to meet. They started to walk it back, and they extended the deadline, which is also what I did with my students. And when you extend deadlines, that is like almost like an admission of failure, that you're giving your students and you're giving the federal employees extra time, right, to walk it back. So I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that. Like on the same night, right? It's kind of interesting. Like when a celebrity comes to town, like, somebody like does a concert or whatever, you're like, wow, that's weird. I'm looking at the same skyline as a celebrity right now. It's like I was up the other night doing the exact same thing as Elon Musk, right? So, yeah. I think I was doing it differently, but But that is the big question now. Is like, how do I get my students engaged? And I really don't know what else I can do. I do right now have more students than I normally do who have either dropped my class or who have not been to class in weeks, and I haven't heard from, and I've sent them emails, and I've really done everything I can do. And was talking to my boss, and I said, I've never seen this before. And she says, have you taught before in the spring? And I said, like, yeah, I taught one class last spring. I remember having some problems with like students not turning in things. And she says to me, like, well, it's usually really bad in the spring because you got to remember that a lot of these kids are freshmen. They're coming from high school. And so they are now dealing with, 6 months of consistent college work. And so they get to the point where they're burnt out. And, I was pretty surprised by this. I really was. And it's something that has made me think quite a lot about this week, that, I have been getting a lot of emails from students who, this week, who I reached out to after the deadline came and went on Monday at midnight, and they were unable to submit their assignment, they said, for various personal reasons. They're having a hard time right now with money. They're working a job while they're going to school, And mental health, that's the word that kept on coming up over and over again. It's like mental health. I'm having mental health issues. And when they're explaining these things to me and they're saying like, I'm having a hard time working this job and going to school, it's really affecting my mental health. I'm having a hard time right now with my mom or my dad, and I can't do my schoolwork and it's affecting my mental health. And I'm getting these emails and I am looking at them and I'm just like, that is not necessarily a mental health issue. You're just, that's life, right? I mean, you know, being alive and being, I hate to say it, like an adult is just simply accepting the responsibility that you are balancing your professional life with your personal life. And I think a lot of students are just not in the habit yet of actually seeing school, because they are in college now. They're not in the habit of seeing school and academics as being like a professional thing. They really still do not have this idea that now that they actually have, you know, it's no longer free, right? They're actually, there's significant financial stakes for them to succeed at this. And that just hasn't registered to them yet. And so it's really, you know, what is going on right now is that like we are just getting students feeding into the college system who have their entire lives been going through this whole thing. Like it's just a very perfunctory thing, right? And of course that's how we see school. It is something that we're forced to go through, but never before, like I think at this point, just from reading the research that's coming in about this generation and how they've grown up with, you know, everything that they have, right, to the point where their school never ends. Like imagine you get out of school and you ride the school bus, but even when you're off the school bus, you're still at school because they're always communicating with each other, you know, via whatever the hell app on their phones. And so they're coming here with just this constant roving anxiety of being judged and having to be on and having to perform. Okay. And it does not surprise me whatsoever. It doesn't surprise me at all coming from school, coming from teaching high school, and actually seeing the kids get along relatively well when they were at school. It's only like when they were home and they were talking to each other on social media and over text message and actually bullying each other right there. That's where like most of our cases, most of our like conflicts between students came from. And so like these kids are now coming into college having basically not gotten any rest from the social aspect of school for the last 13 years. And so now they're here and that's their opinion of what school is, which is like just this never ending social nightmare where they're constantly having to perform and constantly having to be on rather than actually like getting a few hours of the day to themselves to actually learn shit and to do things for school. Okay. And so, yeah, that's where they are right now. That's the students that we have. And so that's my theory. I don't know. You can take it, you can leave it, you know, if you want to. So this gets us right to a question that we have to ask is like, why are we making students do this? Obviously, I know with college, the students do not have to do college, but what have encountered from a lot of students I've talked to is that they do feel that college is an actual requirement. I did have a conversation with a student not too long ago that ended up in just him saying like, I didn't know that this whole thing was optional. I didn't know that I didn't have to come to college if I didn't want to, right? He just thought it was something that he was required to do. I suppose, I don't know, maybe his parents told him, or his guidance counselor told him in school or something, but I don't know. It is this thing where we are facing like all of these problems in the world right now, and we just simply cannot afford to have an uneducated generation coming up and taking over it all. Because as I said on a couple weeks ago, is that like right now we have this this system, this form of government that's a little bit of an endangered species, I believe. And I'm not saying that I'm not being hyperbolic and saying that like the current people that we have in power are going to single-handedly dismantle it. Although I do know that like from the news this week, it does, and from the last few weeks, it does look like that there's no exaggeration there whatsoever. But what I do mean is the fact that like this current generation of kids, you have to think about the fact that they are, particularly the ones I'm teaching, 18, 19, 20 years old. And they have grown up their entire lives, understanding that this is the way that things are supposed to go, that you're supposed to have these bombastic personalities hold high public office and sling insults at each other and talk about Arnold Palmer's penis and get shot at and buddy up to self-serving billionaires and foreign dictators, and tell the president of a country who through no fault of his own whatsoever was bombed by one of these foreign dictators, that it's his fault. This is the way that they've grown up seeing the world. And so it's no wonder whatsoever that they are unengaged, that they probably knew much earlier than I did in the 5th grade that like, oh, people older than me are liars. People older than me make shit up. They know this already, and they've known it for a very, very long time. And so like, what we really need to be doing right now is thinking about the idea that like, this is our number one priority, which is to like get these kids interested in the idea that this is a country that was not always like this, that does have a sense of protocol and tradition and also decorum. And I know that it is a very difficult task. It really is like taking all the devices away from the kids and just giving them a VCR and teaching them that it has value. Right? I know that like democracy right now feels like a VCR to them, in a way, an actual like good government, and whatever, as corrupt and as imperfect as it has always been. It is something that has worked, and has made people's lives better throughout history. And it is something that they have no interest in anymore from like what I've seen. And we need to figure out how we're going to get them interested in that program. And we also need to get them to figure out how we can wake them up from not feeling like they are obligated to go a certain route, to come to these universities, which are increasingly being run as businesses, and going into their adult lives deeply in debt and not knowing anything and just being acquiescent to whatever people tell them. So here's my plan. I can I'm going to get a sip of whiskey and I'll tell you what my plan is. It's like, get it. Oh yeah. Here's to the future. So what we do, right, it's very easy, I think. We have to focus on it. Okay, so right now we have a lot of problems, a lot of issues in this country. Most importantly, I think, above all else, possibly above social security, healthcare, is the fact that we have a labor crisis. Okay. Yes, we do have like jobs that are being automated. We have jobs that are being taken over by AI, but we also have jobs that nobody will work anymore because there is a sense of holier than thou about them. Right? These are the people who clean toilets. These are the people who empty trash. And these are the people who serve us, food at our neighborhood restaurants. Okay. And, the service people. And we are having like a hard time keeping these people, keeping these places staffed right now, keeping these jobs filled, because we currently have a culture that is increasingly looking down on those professions and giving people an alternative to them, which is to work your own hours, become an influencer, become a YouTuber, stream on Twitch. And most of these influencer positions are usually like filled by kids, and kids who just sort of see all of this propaganda given to them that they can make all this money, and without ever having to leave their house or whatever. And look at me. I mean, I have to a degree bought into this myth, right? I haven't bought into the myth really. I mean, I literally do something that is so non-commercial. Just me talking into my microphone late on a Saturday night, drinking whiskey. That right. Yeah, I don't know if I'm really doing like any kind of model that's going to make any money, but most kids do see this, and I have worked with many of them who have told me that what they want to do when they grow up is to be a YouTuber. And I had a student last year tell me that he had to leave class early because he had to get to work. I said like, well, what do you do for work? And he said like, well, I play Fortnite on Twitch. It's a real answer there, right? So he had to go and play Fortnite and on Twitch, and I suppose, and I'm not knocking any of these jobs, but like what it is doing is it is really keeping an entire generation from actually like doing a job that like it benefits humanity, that contributes to their communities, right? And meanwhile, they are coming to college and they're spending all of this money to get an education while they're biding their time becoming a YouTuber, which will most likely never happen for them. Okay. So what they need to do, what we need to do, right, is we need to come up with some kind of a program that allows these kids who are just getting out of high school, if they really want to go to college, if they really have this dead set idea that they are now ready to go to college and they know what they want to be when they grow up, and it doesn't involve sitting in front of a computer all day long, playing League of Legends, then they can go and they can get scholarship money, and they can pay their own way. Their parents can pay for them. They can get financial aid from the government or whatever, but only a little bit. We basically are going to strip away most government financial aid for kids right out of high school, ready to go to college. Okay. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, it's like I thought you were a big liberal, like the government should help people. It's like, yeah, of course. Here's what we do, because this is like the part that pleases both sides, I think. Okay. So we basically tell 18-year-olds who are getting out of high school, who are kind of up in the air and sort of apply to a bunch of different colleges, not really knowing really what they want to do, not wanting to immediately declare major. And basically these are the people that we are sort of seeing as the ones that end up in front of like a teacher, like an adjunct teacher who teaches like 106 and 107 and, these remedial English classes. And I do love my students, but this is what I see, is that they are more or less directionless. They're really doing this just because like this is what they feel they're supposed to do. And I may be putting myself out of a job here, but whatever. I'm martyring myself for the better of this country's future, I think. Okay. We basically tell these 18-year-olds that we're not going to give you government assistance to go to school. But what we will do is we will encourage you. If you don't know you want to go to college yet, we will encourage you to, for 2 to 3 years, just like military service, right? For 2 to 3 years, go and work in a job, and we'll help you place. We'll help you get placement in these jobs. Okay, so you'll go and work as a high school janitor, or you'll go and you'll wash dishes down at the local Mexican restaurant, right? So you'll do these jobs for 2 years. And in that time, you're working and you're accumulating actual experience, and you're doing what so many of my students seem to be missing the idea of, which is to balance a personal life with a career. Okay. And you're learning how to do that in that time. Okay. And what the government will then help them do is, like, if they want to put money, a little bit of their paycheck each week, into a savings account, sort of similar to like an HSA, like a health savings account, or a 401k or something like that. They will put money into the savings account that will accrue interest. And then at the end of the 2 to 3 year term of service work, helping their community and getting some life experience, if they decide then that they want to go to college, that they have a really good idea of now what they want to do, because they're now 22, 23 years old, and they're close to like that brain developing and humming along at its full capacity, they will now be able to take that money that they've accumulated in the savings account and put it toward tuition to go to school. And the schools, since they have saved so much money, right, in instructors and facilities for by basically educating the kids from 18 who really wanted to be there and knew what they wanted to do, they will be able to give these students, these 22-year-old, what we would call non-traditional students, rebates, or, just breaks in tuition. They would be able to lower the cost of tuition. And we would get tuition, I think, to almost where it's been, is the lowest it's been probably since the 1990s if we do this job. Okay. So to be short, the kids, if you really want to go to school, you get to. Okay. If you really want to go to college, you can get that scholarship. You can go and move on because you know what you want to do in life. You want to be a nurse. You want to be a vet. You want to be whatever. Okay. But if you're not really sure yet, don't just go to college because you're not sure, because you will not find out what you want to be in college if you're not sure. You really need to know. By the time you find, it's really like me, right? By the time I figured out what I wanted to do in life, I was 5 years into college. Okay. So it's like most people who go into college without a plan, and there's studies to show this, end up being there much, much longer because they just declare a major, sort of being kind of interested because they saw an actor do it on TV. And then they got 3 years into it. They watched another show with another actor and they're like, oh, that looks cool. I want to do that. And by then they've spent $100,000 and they are now going to have to do 2 more additional years in school. Right. So to me, it just seems obvious. It seems obvious. Okay. Just like this way you fill these jobs that we're having trouble filling in our communities, and you're allowing students to really figure out what they want to do in life. It's just so simple to me. And not only that, but it'll also engage them. It'll make them more interested in kind of like how they're spending their money and how their money is going to taxes to support the community. And it'll actually like give them a sense of like ownership in this country that, and can help them consider more about like who their leaders are. Right. I just think it's like, give me a better plan. I don't know. But I don't know, maybe don't listen to me. I mean, remember, I have the same kind of public school education as JD Vance there. So, right. So I don't know. What did he went to Yale, right? Yeah. And what did it make out of him? Like, because Yale has never produced any assholes before. But yeah, he very clearly went through an Ivy League school and came out and didn't really know what he wanted to do either. That's why he became a politician, I guess. The one job in this country that you can just decide you want to do and just convince enough people that you want to do it and go do it. Yes. Well, that's it. Tell you what, I'm wrapping up, and that's been the biggest questions. Like, am I to blame at all for any of this that's been going on? I don't know. I don't feel guilty, but at the same time, I kind of do. I do feel a little bit like just neutrality, I think, is really what is killing a lot of us. And here I am preaching about the importance not to be neutral right now. And that is one of the ways that I have always seen education. I have always seen education as being a kind of activism, as being, maybe I am rationalizing this because I have never been one of those people to, pick up a poster that's on a stick and take it out into the streets. I've never been one of those people. Like I said, I grew up riding the school bus. My prerogative was to be anonymous, but I do see what going into the classroom every day and actually really trying to pull critical thought out of kids who have literally really just been conditioned by their phones, according to research, as well as by just really terrible education policies that have ping-ponged back and forth between George W. Bush and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Donald Trump, of course, that have just overwhelmed and exhausted the really good teachers and have filled America's classrooms with just people who really should not be there and are probably the ones who, just went to school for 4 to 5 years, not really knowing what they wanted to do and just deciding I guess I'll be a teacher. I don't know. I saw that Morgan Freeman guy do it on TV. Seems kind of inspiring. I saw that guy who voiced that blue genie do it. Kids stood on the desk for him. So, guess I can do it. Looks pretty good. Pretty easy. What's it pay? $19,000 a year? That's not bad. All right. I'll be a teacher. Where do I sign up? Jesus Christ. I want to thank you so much for joining me here tonight on the Midnight Citizen Show. This has been your host, Mike Booty. You can find me on Substack, right? At what's the name of that website again? I can never remember. Does the Substack come first? I don't know. Substack. Yeah. Okay. Mike'sBonfire.substack.com. That's where I am right now. Mike's Bonfire. I really want to thank all the great people who've been listening these past few weeks. I know I really do not run a very typical podcast here, and a lot of that is thanks to just finding at a very specific age, probably on the school bus, Gene Shepard, and reading some of his writings, and then later on, of course, when the internet came along, listening to his radio show that he did in the 1950s all the way to the 1970s. Gene Shepard, just listening to the voice in the night talk about stuff, talk about being a kid, see, and all that. And then later on, finding a bunch of other people who were just as weird as I was in their interest. Over there at the Overnightscape Underground, where I also post my podcast at onsug, ONSUG.com. And yeah, I'm over there. So on Substack and on Onsug. And I also, yes, I've been doing vlogs. I just recorded and finished my 8th vlog. My God, really? Yeah, 8th vlog over as many weeks. And once again, I publish those every Monday, usually in the evening around supper time, over there at the Substack, but also on YouTube at youtube.com/the_Midnight Citizen Podcast. You can find it all there. So anyway, all right. I'm going to go take a bit of a respite now. Plug myself back into that good old indoctrination machine called the television. And I'll be back next week, next Saturday. Until then, keep your eyes open.